Hello and welcome to another episode of the LendAPI Partner Podcast. Today, my guest is Peter Renton, who is CEO and founder of Renton Co. Welcome to the podcast, Peter.
Thanks, Rutger. Great to see you again.
Great to see you. Now, what have you been doing since you sold FinTech Nexus?
Okay, well, we sold the events business back in June of 2023 to FinTech Meetup. You know, it was a bittersweet deal in many ways because I loved doing the events business, but it was also 10 years. We did 31 events worldwide, 11 in the US, and it's a stressful business, particularly after the pandemic and just seeing how the whole business can go away. So anyway, we sold that. And for the next year or so, we focused on just doing digital media. The FinTech Meetup people were not interested in our website, were not interested in our webinar properties. They just wanted a copy of our customer list and a non-compete. So we weren't going to be doing events competing against them. We did the digital media business for a while. We couldn't make the economics work. So we ended up shutting that down, selling that off. I actually relaunched just very recently at the end of February with Command as a PR agency that bought it. I launched Renton Co. July of last year, July of 2024, and I've just been doing consulting for the last 8-9 months.
I think as the industry, it was quite a moment for everyone. Everyone was like, "Oh man, FinTech Nexus!" No longer and LendIt. That was also still in the back of my mind. So LendIt.
LendIt. We rebranded. LendIt was the brand for the first 9 years, and then we rebranded in 2022 to FinTech Nexus.
But it was such an industry household name, right? That's where things in the lending and in the fintech space was happening at that conference. And so when people heard that, I remember people sending messages back and forth and going like, "Hey, this is a big thing. What happened here?"
Yeah, it was a bummer. I mean, I've had probably 500 conversations with people since we did that, since we announced the sale. Everyone, there's a lot of people disappointed. Time moves on, and we felt like we gave it our all, and we were ready to go on to the next chapter.
It's a great legacy to look back on. I've been to several of the events, and they were amazing. Now, what are some things that you're working on lately?
So lately, as I said, I've been doing consulting. I've had a lot of interesting projects. I did a keynote at subprime lender for their annual employee offsite, which was a lot of fun. In fact, Tim Lee was also there, your colleague, and I got to hang out with him for a bit, which was great. And I've also been helping out with some events. I'm helping out with the FTA, the Financial Technology Association. They have their annual CEO summit in June, so I've been helping put that together. I was also helping the FinTech Exchange. This is an event in Utah that I helped put on for them in January, and so that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So I've been doing some other sort of thought leadership things. I've been helping out a couple of small business fintechs, doing some business development work for others, and generally keeping busy with a variety of different things, which has been a lot of fun.
And obviously, your wealth of knowledge and experience comes in super handy when people are doing events, and having you help out with that is very valuable.
Yeah, and that keeps my head in the game. I love events. Yep. And I have a non-compete, so I can't go and compete with FinTech Meetup. I'm not interested in starting my own event at all. Yeah. But I enjoy kind of just keeping all my skills sharp and helping others put on great events.
I remember at a startup that I worked at, we had an annual event, but that was always a lot of work, and it wasn't the core business. So having someone advise you on that has done that has the playbook, that basically knows what to do, that I think is super valuable.
Yeah, a lot of people put on events not realizing how much is involved because it looks pretty easy, right? And it's pretty easy to put on a mediocre event. That is pretty easy. Yeah. But if you want it to be good, seamless, so people come and say, "Wow, that was a great use of my time," it takes a lot of effort, a lot of things in place.
If your business is running something else, then spending all that time on organizing an event, that could take the eye off the ball.
Yep, indeed.
Now, what's going on in lending right now? What are you seeing out in the industry?
I think it's actually a really interesting time here in the lending space. I think there's a number of developments that are making their impact on the industry. we can't talk about anything in fintech without talking about AI right now.
Right.
And we've had AI in lending for underwriting for more than a decade. When Upstart were one of the first to do that. There's been some sort of machine learning models in lending. FICO have been doing it for like decades. But what I'm more interested in is some of the AI use cases that there's some lenders that are doing interesting things with generative AI, particularly when it comes to small business categorization was one thing that I've spoken with a small business lender doing that. Consumer lenders are doing interesting things in the marketing side. And of course, you've got all of like the back end stuff. So AI is a really big one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite developments in lending is Cashflow underwriting. That is something that its time has come. We've got the open banking rules from the CFPB. Of course, I'm not going to get into what the status of that is, but the reality is companies are using Cashflow underwriting today simply because it's a more accurate way of pricing. It's a more accurate way of approving, because the credit score is great. Credit reports are great, but they don't tell you what's happened in the last month, in the last 2 months. And it gives you one side of the equation. You don't find out about what all the income is. And that's why Cashflow underwriting is so great. Maybe just one other, like LendAPI, doing a lot of work with embedded lending, lending as a service. That is going to become even bigger. I think this plug and play that LendAPI has really mastered is going to just change completely. Because the thing is, almost every fintech is going to get into lending at some point, and embedded lending now makes it easy, makes the development time much quicker, and you can be up and running like. Compared to what even 5 years ago, you can be up and running in a less than half the time.
So AI, cash flow underwriting, embedded finance, and them all coming together, right? They're not just individual components.
Of course,
they all come together.
They're not a silo anymore. There's like the whole cash flow underwriting piece. There's so much AI involved in producing those models. Everything is a continuum these days. Nothing's in a silo.
Well, Peter, that might be a good point to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being on. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Rutger. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was another episode of the LendAPI Partner Podcast. We will see you next time.